Hey everyone, how's it going? Like Butter here, bringing you another Division video today, and I want to talk about something that I feel like I should have talked about a while ago. Now, the Division has this problem with weapon balancing. You guys may have heard about it in State of the Game. They actually talked about them looking into this in the future. However, they don't have enough data to be able to figure out how to balance these things exactly. And I want to give my opinions on it and what I think will help this game, kind of have more variety. Because as most of you know, a lot of people are just using SMGs and marksman rifles. With sentries getting changed, you're seeing more people use shotguns. But without using the sentries call build, there's really no point in using a shotgun at this point in time. And I want to talk about ways that I think they could balance this. So the reason people are mostly using SMGs and marksman rifles are because they have a passive talent. Now, if you guys don't know this, SMGs and marksman rifles have a talent that is automatically unlocked. It may not look like a talent, but it is one. SMGs get anywhere between 21% and 25.5% crit chance, and marksman rifles get I think anywhere between 130% to 165 or 170% headshot damage. Now, I'm not sure if that is accurate. I don't know what the range is on the marksman rifles, but basically they get an extra stat. So you got 3 talents that come on the high-end weapons, and then you're getting that extra stat. Now, how SMGs work is they don't have like a huge amount of range, but they have a really high fire rate, and with that extra crit chance, you're being able to kind of build up to close to 50% crit chance, and with pulse, you're going to be, having like 80 to 90% crit chance in some situations. So basically, SMGs are going to do a lot of damage because you're outputting a lot of crits in a short amount of time. And same thing with the marksman rifles. You're putting out large amounts of damage with that extra headshot damage. If you're you're using 2 sentries, or you have headshot damage on something else, with that headshot damage stat, you're going to be doing a lot more damage. So here's what I think they can do to kind of balance out the weapons. So obviously, they could add a crit chance to the assault rifles, but I feel like that's kind of a little bit boring. I think there needs to be more diversity than that. And I think what they can do is actually add a armor shred ability to the assault rifles, because as most of you know, with 75% mitigation, not being able to get the crit chance very high on the assault rifles is kind of holding the damage back quite a bit. Now the problem is that I think what they tried doing was making the assault rifles more of a medium ranged weapon, but with all of the ways that people have to heal in this game and how it's harder to hit people, when they're serpentining and that kind of thing, the assault rifles start to become not very viable because it's more damage over time and not in less, burst damage like the SMGs. Now, I think this would be a good thing to add, like, on an assault rifle. Every assault rifle gets anywhere between, 12% and 15% armor ignorance on the weapon. So basically what that means is whether you're shooting an NPC or you are shooting a player, it is going to ignore 15% of their armor. So obviously this would, for NPCs, this would be considered armor destruction. However, you can't destruct armor on players, so I think this would be a good thing to kind of ignore that, because that will make up for the lack of damage. Now, obviously, they got to test this. I'm not sure if this would work out with guns like the Alvoa, which shoots extremely fast. Maybe they would have to do a little bit of balancing to that. But I think even if it's a small percentage of armor ignorance, I think this will make assault rifles a lot more viable, and I think they will be a viable option. I just think with the Predator's Mark, when they added the 800 assault rifle damage, that's just not enough, because the amount of damage that the rifles output aren't the problem. It's the lack of crit chance that causes that. So I think that would be good for assault rifles. It would make people do a lot more damage, and for, especially against tanks, you may shred a tank because you're using an assault rifle, whereas like an SMG, you may not do as much damage because you don't have that armor ignorance or that armor piercing. The next thing that I think would be really good for LMGs would be armor destruction on players. Now, LMGs are so unviable at this point in time, it's actually ridiculous. So I think the only way to make LMGs viable is to turn it into a sort of support weapon. And that would mean, like, to have the weapon kind of destruct armor, like, LMGs have armor piercing bullets that are made to, chop up tanks and shoot through other armor objects. And I think this would be a good talent to have, a armor piercing talent, where it's unlike the assault rifle, it's armor destruction. So, like, say for example, you have a player that has 75% armor mitigation. Maybe you have LMGs that do anywhere between 6 to 9% armor destruction. So if you hit a certain amount of bullets and you get a certain amount of stacks on a player, they will have their armor reduced by a certain percent for everyone, not only for you. And I think that would be a pretty good idea, because that would be kind of like the how sentries used to be. However, not as OP. Maybe it stacks faster with headshots than it does in the chest. I don't know, but I think that would be a pretty cool idea, because that way you could have one person, have in the tank role, running an LMG and kind of just shredding everyone's armor. That way, I don't think there's any possible way for them to make LMGs viable, just because, the long clip offsets the amount of damage they do and the slow fire rate. There's really not much you can do about it, but I think that would be a cool little feature. And for shotguns, to make shotguns a little more viable, I think what they could do, and it seemed like a lot of people kind of enjoyed, this idea. Shotguns don't get a lot from the talents that they're given. You could get like brutal deadly on a shotgun, but it's not going to help that much, if you know what I mean. Like, just because, like, you have to be so close in order to do damage, and it's harder to hit your shots, especially if there's a lot of people running around and stuff, and if you miss your shot, you're kind of screwed. I think adding a fourth talent, kind of like they did with the Tenebrae, would be cool. Have it so that there are 2 unlocked talents, and then obviously the 2 talents that have requirements. I don't think that would be that overpowered, and I think it would kind of buff the shotguns in a way where it would seem more viable to people. I don't know any other way that they could really buff shotguns without making them OP. Here's the thing, like, I want shotguns to be viable, but I don't want them to be ridiculous like the NPC shotguns, like how you just get one shot and like, I don't want to be in a fight and just get one shot and be like, what the fuck just happened? Some dude just literally one shot me with a shotgun. That will make me super angry, and I don't think that will be fun, because the problem with shotguns is a lot of the damage is going to come at one time, and this is more of a game where you need time to react, to use med kits, to heal, to call out to teammates, to do any of that kind of thing. So hopefully adding another talent, even though not making them overpowered, I think would make the shotguns a little more viable. So I think with adding a passive talent and the extra talent to the shotguns, it'll make these weapons a lot more viable. And also, why do pistols have only one talent? I don't understand that. Like, pistols in this game are so irrelevant, it's unbelievable. I think pistols need a buff. I don't know about you guys, but regardless of what type of pistol you have, you're not going to do any type of damage at all. Now, why pistols only have 2 talents and one of the talents is set and is not very good is beyond me. I have no idea. I think pistols absolutely 100% need an extra talent. Even then, they probably won't be viable, and I know it's just a sidearm and it should be used for killing NPCs, but at this point in time, no matter what your DPS is, you're not going to be able to kill NPCs with your pistol. It's just way too hard. You're going to take way too much damage. I think pistols could also use an extra talent there. Maybe one of those unlocked talents, random talents. Any of that would just help out in general. And then I think the marksman rifle and the SMG talents are fine. Like the crit chance on the SMG is really kind of nice, but you kind of need it because you're not going to do any damage from medium to longer range. But yeah, I think that would be a good way to balance out the weapons. I want to hear what you guys think. Maybe some of you guys have some ideas you want to share. I know that Massive, is probably looking into this, into balancing. And the thing they said was that they think that not enough people have the ability to get assault rifles and to get LMGs and stuff. They think that people were using like the Vector and the AUG because those were the weapons available via crafting, and that's just not true. Like I said, it's because of the passive talents on the weapons that make these weapons so strong and so viable in multiplayer. So that's my opinions. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to drop the video a like and let me know, like I said, in the comment section. I would love to hear some of your ideas. Maybe there's some ideas out there that are way better than mine that need to be heard. So, yeah, I definitely think that we need more variety in builds, and even though, like I said, the Predator's Mark build was really fun and it's very viable, it's more of a support build just because the assault rifles don't do enough damage, especially to players with all the armor mitigation. They don't do enough damage to players in order for them to, the Predator's Mark to do any type of damage at all. Also, another thing that I thought would be pretty cool is to have a new ability in the game that reduces healing, kind of like Ignite does in League of Legends. I don't know how many of you guys play League of Legends, but there is a summoner spell that kind of marks an enemy for like 4 to 5 seconds. It marks a champion, and then their healing is reduced by 50% for that duration. I think something like that would be really cool in this game, because healing just gets too much, especially with full skill power groups just running triage over and over again. I think some sort of, like, whether it be a new talent or something that you can get on your gun, a stat, anything like that, that could reduce the amount of healing on a player. I think that would be really, really cool. I personally think that that's what the Ensign bullets should do. I don't think the Ensign bullets should have the ability to actually, set you on fire. I think the Ensign bullets should kind of mark you and reduce your healing by 50% or something like that. I think that'd be pretty cool. Maybe even do damage, but just not keep you from using any of your abilities or doing anything. I think that's just kind of weird. But yeah, that's my video for today. Hopefully you guys enjoyed, and I will talk to you guys next time. Take care, everybody.